Hey guys, welcome back to another Something in About 5 Minutes, and today we are talking all about cardiac arrest and more specifically, ROSC. So let's get started. The first thing we have to understand is what ROSC means. ROSC is an acronym for Return of Spontaneous Circulation. In a cardiac arrest situation, this just means that your patient that you're working the cardiac arrest on has now regained their own pulses. You're now doing, fabulous CPR, just like you were, fully trained to do as a great EMT or paramedic. And hopefully you're not doing it like Dumb and Dumber here. But there's a couple things that we have to understand about when we're doing CPR and the obtainment of ROSC. And that is, we're going to follow closely our end tidal CO2. It is our go-to gold standard for measuring whether or not we have ROSC prior to a pulse check, every 2 minutes of CPR, right? So going into normal waveform here, right? So we have a normal end tidal CO2 waveform looks like this, right? A normal waveform number is approximately 35 to 45. We want to keep it in that range. And they're going to be nice plateaus, a nice sloping arc to a plateau to a steep drop and then another one, right? And this is when we are normally breathing in and out like we are now. But now we go into a cardiac arrest type situation, okay? And your end tidal is going to change to more something like this. They're going to be very shallow, very tiny plateaus, okay? Now this is if you are giving ventilations during CPR with a bag valve mask hooked up to an end tidal, right? Our goal here is looking at perfusing the brain and the rest of the organs during CPR. So typically, if you are doing high quality chest compressions, you are going to be getting an end tidal of 10 to 20, right? And that's the gold standard that you really want to be looking for in good quality chest compressions. If it's under 10, and 12, you're doing lackluster CPR and you need to get with the program and do better compressions, right? If you're on a Lucas device, you might even see upwards of 19, 20, 22, 24 because that device is doing such high quality CPR. So what happens when we obtain ROSC? How do we know? So we're looking at our end tidal and all of a sudden our end tidal is going from these little plateaus to boom. We have these massive spike plateaus. All of a sudden you're bagging, and your next one is boom. And it spits out a number on the end tidal like 65, 70, some crazy astronomical number. If that happens, check for a pulse. Stop CPR for a second and check a pulse. Or if you're close to the next round of CPR being completed, finish that round and then check for a pulse. Most likely you have obtained ROSC, or return of spontaneous circulation. Now we get these giant waveforms because now the patient's heart is now perfusing the brain and the lungs, and you're getting all of this CO2 to now blow off in the lungs. So you're measuring a higher end tidal within this acidotic environment. So after you guys have gotten ROSC, you absolutely need to do the next 6 things here to really benefit the survival of your patient. And this is that after ROSC care. First thing you need to do is obtain a full set of vitals, right? Get a blood pressure. If you haven't gotten a glucose, get a blood glucose. If you haven't put them on the 4-lead EKG at this point, you've been using just the monitor pads, the defib pads. Get them on that 4-lead EKG monitor and see what rhythm you're dealing with, okay? You want to make sure that you are getting a full set of vitals. Typically, you're not going to see somebody that has a 160 blood pressure. You're going to see them either normotensive or hypotensive. Okay, their heart has just been through a lot. Okay, they might be bradycardic. You might have to start pacing them. Okay, these are things that we absolutely have to do. To get that information is by obtaining a set of vitals. The number 2 thing that you absolutely have to do is you have to get a 12-lead EKG. Okay, getting the 12-lead EKG can tell you whether or not the reason that these people went into cardiac arrest is cardiac or not. They could be having a massive STEMI, and now you guys are getting that 12-lead, and you can be like, okay, they're having a massive STEMI. All right, guys, the number 3 thing, you're going to continue those adequate ventilations, right? Maybe your patient is beginning to breathe on their own. You're still going to assist them if they're not intubated. Okay, you're going to do that 1 breath every 5 to 6 seconds if they're an adult, 3 to 5 if they're a ped, and 1 to 3 if they're an infant. Okay, we're still going to do the appropriate ventilations. If they're intubated, just keep on doing what you've been doing. Just remember, and this goes into number 4, keep it slow and smooth. The Navy SEALs use the term slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And we need to be able to do this here with our cardiac arrest resuscitation patients. Okay, you've obtained ROSC. That's amazing. But this is not the time for you guys to now be, getting ahead of yourselves and rushing like a bunch of chickens with your heads cut off. Okay, we need to slow it down and be methodical at this point in time. Okay, now that leads into number 5. You absolutely have to resuscitate your patients. Okay, resuscitate your patients there. Like I said, this is not the time. Oh, they got ROSC. Okay, throw them on the Reeves, get them in the truck, get them outside, and boogie to the hospital. Now, I'm not saying stay for another 30 minutes. I'm saying you get ROSC, you wait 10 minutes, okay? You're going to resuscitate. You're going to increase blood pressure. Maybe this means giving more fluid, giving a pressor, getting them... maybe they're starting to wake up. Maybe this is a point where you resuscitate and then you RSI or you sedate them. Anything that you can do within that resuscitation section to make your job easier for the transfer. If you don't stop and resuscitate your patients and you just run off and get going to the hospital, that patient will recode on you. They will lose their ROSC status and go back into cardiac arrest because you didn't take the time to resuscitate them. Okay, moving a post-cardiac arrest patient is almost as deadly as the initial cardiac arrest themselves. Okay, so resuscitate your patients. And the last thing is, once you've resuscitated your patients, get them to the appropriate facility. Now, you might have standing protocols in place to go to one hospital or another. I don't know if you guys do. But in my area, we don't. We take them, typically, if they're in cardiac arrest, to the closest appropriate hospital. Most people interpret that as the closest hospital. However, think about what you're doing in ROSC, right? You're taking a person who is just dead with a cardiac issue to a hospital, okay? You want to make sure that the hospital you're bringing them to has cardiac services and significant cardiac services. PCI centers, cath labs, all of these different places that they need to have for their cardiac issue post-cardiac arrest. Well, guys, I hope you learned something on this Tuesday morning. Make sure to check out these 2 videos right here for more educational content. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure to check out our new Patreon page. I will see you guys next Tuesday.